Hey everyone, welcome back to Tackle Gaming. Today in Warcraft Rumble, I'm going to show you one of my favorite decks so far. It is a Rend deck. Now in PvP, this deck has been doing very well for me. I have about an 80% win rate and I'm about 2000 ranking currently, as you can see here, 1900. So I've had a pretty good time with this deck and it has had a lot of success for me. So of course, this deck works in a similar way to a lot of other Rend deck. Rend is a very powerful flying unit that has a breadth of AoE, kind of like the regular Drake, but then dismounts and becomes a very strong tank with a charge. He counters a lot of the meta units, especially the Huntress. He is a very good counter to her in a 1v1 situation especially, and then with some support he is even better. Sadly, she kills his Drake, but then he kills her quite easily as a tank charging unit. The best thing for him is Scale and Steel for sure, being that it gives him much more tankiness and makes him resistant, which is really good against a lot of elemental damage and will make the Drake much more resistant. And then he becomes armored himself when he dismounts, which makes him counter a lot of units like the Huntress that I just mentioned. Otherwise, Flaming Soul, another very viable option. Now for this deck, there are a few things you can change around for sure. Must have are going to be the whelps in my opinion, because especially with Flame Burst, they become a spell that can clear most AoE packs just with a Flame Burst, and then has whelps that come out of it. And also because there are a flying unit, which means that when you do play Rend in the field, makes all flying unit cost 1 less. So when he's in the field, you can cast a whelp that has a cost of 2, which does a lot of AoE damage when you have the talent, and then summons flying units, which is very good for, putting in front of a chest so that melee units attack the eggs and die before they get the chest. You can kill most tanks, things like the Abomination, things like the Tauren stuff. The whelps really counter these very, very well. So it is very solid, and for a cost of 2 is going to be amazing in your deck. Another must-have is going to be the Drake himself. It is obviously going to be a cost of 1 less, so a cost of 3 for a very powerful AoE flying Drake, which needs to be answered with certain anti-air, otherwise it can really wreck a lot of troops in this game. The best talent in my opinion is Mother Drake in this situation, but having no talent is also not too bad. It is still a very decent unit. The other talents are really not that good. Engulfing Flame is okay, but Roost in my opinion is really not good for PvP currently. But Mother Drake really is amazing. It puts little whelps everywhere who doesn't explode, even though you have the talent on the eggs, doesn't matter, but they still spawn a whelp in the air, which can really be good if Kobold and stuff like that. They can really control a lane with these little things. It's really practical. Now here I have put the Dark Iron Miner as my third unit from the Blackrock. He is a very special unit. Obviously he can be summoned anywhere for a cost of 2 and take a mining. So in PvP I find this unit quite decent. The reason that I'm using it is mostly because I have the talent that is Gold Mine. Now his other talents are also not bad. The armored one can be pretty decent because he does become a bit of a tank, and he is not a bad unit. He does decent damage and he can solo some minis for a similar cost of his, so Fury wouldn't be terrible either. But I do like this, especially PvP, because the mine that it drops kills all kobold, and it kills a lot of things like, for example, the chicken, the murlocs, all the very small weak cost unit. So you put him down, he mines, kind of pays himself back, and then drops a mine for every time he has mined himself. So currently the Alterac Valley map is so good for him. You can put it on top of your platform, and then he crosses the bridge. If he mines 1 or 2 gold in both sides, that will put mines everywhere on the top platform, which can really change the game in your favor. So he is very, very good here in that option, but he can also be placed behind a tower and tank for the dragon or for other units that you have. So he has some utility. Otherwise, if you want to swap him, a very good replacement for this guy will be the usual guy, the Quillbore, which is sadly not something that fits in this deck as far as 3 Blackrock units do. But unless you're really high rank in PvP, doesn't matter because the levels get kind of scaled down, so it doesn't matter if you have higher level or not. In this situation, Quillbore is a straightforward unit. Tunnel Vision is his best talent, but all talents do work, or no talents as well. He's just something you can deploy anywhere in the map right now, and he does give resistant, like he has resistant, which means he can tank the towers in PvP currently. So this is a personal preference here. They both kind of work, they both kind of fulfill a similar role. And being that they're both unbound and the cost of 2, so it's up to you the way you want to play it. I like to play it currently with this one because I'm just having more fun with the map control, which is what I try to focus on this deck. The Headhunter, I'm currently placing him in every single deck that I have because in PvP, there is nothing that really beats him with his big bad voodoo talent. If you don't have the talent, he is definitely not as good, and I wouldn't put him. Not that he's bad in any way, but that talent is just so good. It makes him so OP. He is a great counter to almost all air units in this game, as well as he can literally solo a tower right now in PvP. He is just so good with his healing. He can just tank towers endlessly. And if you send him on the side lane and he's not answered, he will win the game for you. So it is really hard not to put him. He has so much value for a cost of 3. He counters so many of the meta units right now. It's really hard not to put him. In that slot though, if you don't have him talented, there's a lot of things you can put here. Something like Huntress also works really well. And another one that's really high value right now is the Pyromancer. She can be a good alternative for the range damage air killer type of unit. And with the splash damage doubled with conflict rate, it does give you a lot of AoE damage if you can protect her. Otherwise, Pyroblast will make her one-shot a lot, or if not most of the minis in the game currently if you need that. So another one that could counter some of the more annoying units in the game right now. Now, my personal favorite right now for this deck is the Defias Bandits with the Picklock. Alterac Valley map has 2 chests right in the middle, and these guys kind of like do a very good job of contesting them, or at least pressuring them. You can support them with a low cost unit or a flying unit, so they need to answer the middle lane. And being that it's a cost of 1, they're so powerful. As you can see, as a cost of 1, they can solo basically most mages. They can even solo like a hero like Jaina with a higher cost. So with their stun, it's very powerful. Also, against something like the Huntress, they almost 1v1 a Huntress. If you just put any kind of support while the Huntress is stunned, she will die. They really just have a lot of value because the stun and the stealth makes it so they can really help your ranged units like the dragon, like the whelp, like even like the headhunter. But really, it's just they have too much of a versatility for a cost of 1. It's really hard not to put them in a deck currently with the way the PvP map is. Lastly, we're going with the safe palette. Obviously, I don't need to say too much about the safe palette. She is one of the most played unit in the game currently. She is amazing with Gnomish Cloaking Device. Every talent works, though. I mean, Gnomish Cloaking Device is by far better, and no talent also works. But the Cloaking Device is what gives her ultimate value currently, being that you can summon her unbound on the corner of the map against towers when you have something tanking it, or even if you don't, and she will get 2 or 3 shots on the towers every time. Also, you can summon her like on a Huntress with the Defias and then kill her. You can summon her on any mages, any skeleton, any little units massed together, and she does a huge AoE damage as she lands. She also one-shots the Headhunter, which the Dark Spirit Troll are very powerful in this meta, so she is one of the counters to them. So it's hard not to put her in the game because she is not only a spell that does AoE damage, but then becomes a unit that also is a range AoE damage dealer. So if you summon her and she has someone to tank in front of her, she will do incredible damage. If she has the Gnomish Cloaking Device, she will also do sneak attacks, and she can really solo a lot of minis in this game on top of the damage she dealt coming down. So it is hard not to put her in any deck currently. So when you're playing a deck like this, there is a few strategies to keep in mind. So of course, it's more of a reactionary deck. You have Whelps, Safe Palette, and the Miner or the Quillbore, who are all unbound, which means that you can really summon these anywhere and react to anything. If the enemy is summoning like a big pack of mob or skeleton, or multiple murlocs and flying monsters, harpies, you can drop the Safe Palette on them and destroy them all. You can also obviously drop the Whelps on any tank, any melee unit that don't have air attack in front of them or on that path when they summoned, and then they'll have to kill the dragon eggs and then damage themselves and die from the air if they don't have a counter in the same lane. So a lot of pressure can be done with the Whelps. And obviously the Headhunter can just be summoned on his own in the side lane where you're not focused, and if he's not answered, he will kill the tower by himself. So that's another, it's a lot of pressure, a lot of side lane, a lot of reactivity. You can wait for your opponent to do something and react to it. You have a counter to almost everything. The main push of this deck is obviously you summon Rend way far in the back of your lane beside your tower, and then you make sure that he takes the longest path possible to get to the enemy. Meanwhile, you try and summon behind him. I would summon like a Drake, so that would be 6 for Rend and then 3 for the Drake, being the 1 cost less. So that's like the big push, and it basically is 2 Drake, and then when the Rend dies, his charges becomes a tank for the Drakes that is left behind. I also love to send a Defias with that, so if you can pull 10 mana or just slowly later afterwards, because the Defias will go and stun some of the range unit that counter Drake. Otherwise, the Headhunter is a very good guy to send behind these guys, so that when Rend become a tank, Headhunter is in the back to protect him. And then once you have basically Rend, the Drake, and Headhunter or Defias as a push lane, you obviously will have no gold left. But then you wait, and because you summon them far back, you wait until they reach their destination, and then once they get into a fight, that is when you can have your unbound stuff to support them. So if they summon a counter, drop safe pallet on it. If they summon a melee unit or a lot of unit, drop the whelps on them, and then the whelps will explode, kill them, have flying unit that will distract them while your Rend and other guys are doing damage. You get into a tower and you don't want the whelp to die or the Drake to die, summon the miner behind the tower, let it soak 1 or 2 hits while your guys get in position. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this deck. It really is a deck that, it's a one-trick pony in the way that you always go summon like a Rend Drake combo with support, but there is really not a lot of counter to it in this game currently. And the counters, which are stuff like the Huntress and the Headhunter, for example, the Dark Spiritual, Safe Pallet, and Defias counter them both quite easily. So it is really a very, very strong deck. You don't need talents on everything, you do need talents on some of it, but currently in the game, with a few switches, things around, you can play around and have a really good time climbing without losing too much. Hopefully you guys have as fun of a time as I have had with Rend in PvP. Even in PvE, he's absolutely amazing. I've used this deck and the variations that I explained at the beginning to clear most PvE, including the dungeon, the Dead Mines, and the Gloomeragon currently going on. Next week, we do have the Rocket Towers coming, so I do think they'll be similar to the Dragon Towers with AoE damage, which will make it so that this deck I think will still be quite decent. And the next modifier is going to be fortifications, which I don't know what exactly it's going to entail, but I am a guess that elemental damage, which is most of this deck, is going to be very strong against it. Make sure to subscribe and check out this channel, as I am going to be uploading a lot of Warcraft Rumble decks, as well as in the description I will put a link to this deck so you can go see it on nof.gg, which is a website that has a lot of guides. So make sure to check out the deck there if you need any more information. I'm gonna have a detailed written guide written there as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.